just going to put that out there. And speaking of ridiculous movies, let's talk about Tango and Cash. Matt, why don't you tell us about your movie you picked?
This is one of my all-time favorite guilty pleasure movies because it's peak 80s Stallone and Kurt Russell mashed together, which is fantastic. And you always know that when a movie starts with Sylvester Stallone saying Rambo is a pussy, it's something special because that type of meta just doesn't happen all that often. But basically, it's about these two Los Angeles narcotics detectives, Ray Tango, played by Sylvester Stallone, and Gabriel Cash, played by Kurt Russell. And basically, they're both like super cops, and they operate in different parts of the city, and they have this kind of rivalry going over who can be like the best cop. And Sylvester Stallone's Tango is like this, like very kind of upright, wears a suit, like
stock market guy,
glasses. He's kind of like an egghead. And Cash is kind of like the loose cannon, like t-shirt and jeans type guy. And they don't know it, but they've been systematically taking on this crime lord's drug operation. And the crime lord, his name's Parrot. He hatches this plan to frame Tango and Cash for the murder of a federal agent and get them thrown in jail so that he can like slowly torture them and punish them for, costing him billions of dollars in lost drug revenue. And then Tango and Cash basically have to put aside their differences and team up to find out who this guy is and how to stop him and how to get their lives back. And it's peak 1980s buddy cop shenanigans.
So over the
When
top.
did this come out? 89?
It was the last movie of 1989 because it came out in December. And so I just want to give you guys some interesting factoids about this to set the stage before we talk about it. This movie was produced by John Peters and Peter Gruber, who I don't know if you guys have heard of these people before.
Any relation to Hans Gruber?
No, unfortunately.
Uninterested.
But they were like the big super producers of the 1980s. They did like Batman. That was like their big first
Tim Burton Batman?
The Tim Burton Batman, yeah. That was their first big one. And they eventually became the heads of Sony Studios. And they almost destroyed that studio with their stupidity. It cost them like $3.2 billion in revenue before they got fired. And to give you some idea, John Peters, the guy who was really behind Tango and Cash, he used to be Barbra Streisand's hairdresser. And he leveraged that relationship with Streisand into getting producing credits. And he eventually became like a super producer, I think mostly because of his association with Peter Gruber. Because John Peters is well known for having like terrible ideas. And there was a time in the 90s when he had optioned Superman. He was trying to get a Superman movie made. And he had hired Kevin Smith to write it. And he insisted that Kevin Smith put in giant spiders and gay robots.
Yes, I heard about that.
He was like, can you make the robots gay? And Kevin Smith was like, yeah, okay.
Kevin Smith has a fantastic speech about that very subject. It's so funny. If you guys have a chance, check it out on YouTube.
So basically John Peters is a well-known hack who just kind of lucked into making all these like successful movies. And he wanted to make his version of Lethal Weapon, which was what Tango and Cash was meant to be.
Felt very much like that.
Yeah. And this movie was interesting because it was just, you wouldn't know it because it turned out pretty good, but it was just such a mess. They had like 5 different directors come in. Wow. They started shooting without a completed script. This movie, even though it was credited as being written by another screenwriter, it was actually written by Sylvester Stallone because he would rewrite the movie on set every day. So basically, like when you're listening to this dialogue in this movie, that's all Sylvester Stallone, just creating it.
That makes so much sense.
And so the original director of photography of the movie was going to be Barry Sonnenfeld, who was the director of Men in Black.
Okay.
And he was Tim Burton's favorite cinematographer. And Sylvester Stallone hated him so much, he fired him like the day they started filming. He was just like, "Oh, get this Barry guy out of here." You know?
Is that your best Sylvester?
No,
hey, you're fired.
Hey,
I can't do it either.
I can only do Rocky.
And,
that's we'll talk about it. Go on.
Yeah, the funny thing about this movie though was originally the character of Cash was going to be played by Patrick Swayze.
Okay.
And when Patrick Swayze saw like how big of a mess that this movie was in terms of its production, he backed out and went and did Roadhouse instead.
Oh, such
Fantastic
a good choice.
movie.
And that's when they cast Kurt Russell to come in.
2 good choices were made that day.
And the reason Kurt Russell accepted the role, get this. So basically, the role of Martin Riggs in Lethal Weapon was originally offered to Kurt Russell, and he turned it down. And he was like, man, I shouldn't have turned down that role because it ended up being a big hit. So when this came along, he's like, yes, I'm going to do this. And he played Cash exactly how he would have played Martin Riggs in Lethal Weapon.
They're the same character.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They've even got that obnoxious like laser scope on their 357 weapons and
That thing
stuff.
was so ridiculous.
Yeah. And also a fun fact is that, the Tango and Cash mobile.
You're
big
giving it
SUV.
away. You're giving away the best part.
Well, they used the same sound effect for Luke Skywalker's land speeder for that vehicle.
I hear it now.
I thought
I'm thinking about it.
I thought that was a fun little
That's
connection
a nice
to
little Star Wars connection.
But this movie, I only ever saw it on broadcast TV when I was growing up, and so like it was very choppy and like they cut out all the swear words and stuff.
All the tits.
But I loved
There's a
this
lot
movie.
of tits in this movie. You didn't see them? Oh my god, dude.
Oh, I guess there was some.
Yeah.
They're not up to Vader's.
Yeah.
standard.
Yeah, they're not. What was it? Palin standards.
I watch a lot of porn.
Nail and
dubs, so-
Palin standards. One of my favorite scenes in the movie, though, is the Dykes on Bikes scene.
Oh yeah, that's
Yes.
good.
Oh, my God.
there's a scene where Terry Hatcher, who plays Sylvester Stallone's sister, like she works at a dance club.
She was really smoking hot.
Yeah,
back then.
Yeah,
Well,
dude.
she's still
I
pretty good.
kind of
Still
forgot. Yeah.
Like she comes out of the club in like a biker's outfit, and you think like, oh, it's Kurt Russell trying to like sneak out of this club while the feds are screening people outside. And there's this like really sexist police officer who like kind of starts accosting her, and she gets on her bike, and then Kurt Russell comes out, and his disguise is he's completely in drag. He's dressed as a woman, but it's like Kurt Russell's like muscular top
with the-
body.
yeah.
His chiseled
Yeah.
jaw.
Yeah, with a couple days growth on his face.
And the cop is like, hey, sweetheart, what are you, an aerobics instructor? and Terry Hatcher.
Hatcher.
Yeah, she's like, hey, get away from my property. And like Kurt Russell like
Which
gets
is
on the
also
back of her bike.
sexist.
Yeah. Kurt Russell gets on the back of her bike.
Or is it transphobic?
and the
Whatever.
the
It's not okay, whatever it is.
Okay. Get that out of the
the
way.
cop is like, hey, ladies, what's the chance of getting a threesome?
Oh my god, it was
Because that's
so
how you go.
obnoxious.
Yeah, that's how that
And
happens.
Kurt Russell literally flicks his cigarette into the guy's face. And like the entire time we're watching this scene, Jude and I are just cracking up.
Yeah.
It was probably the best scene in the whole
Amazing.
movie. So any movie where Sylvester Stallone calls Rambo a pussy and Kurt Russell appears in drag, you know is a special film.
All right, Jude, what are your thoughts? We're gonna go around the table. I'll go last because I've got some words for Kadish over here. What is your thoughts on this movie?
I love 80s movies, so it was it falls into the category of awesomely bad for me. Yeah, I thought it was a
Awesomely
good,
bad.
It was a good rompy little cop flick. I mean, it didn't blow my mind. I don't think it was supposed to, but everything I wanted to get out of it, I did. It was 80s. It was terrible. Kurt Russell, I love. I'll watch anything with Kurt Russell in it.
What'd you think of the shower scene?
Oh man, don't drop the soap. Hey, what are you doing? Don't flatter yourself.
They started going back and forth with dick jokes against each other.
Yeah.
Like, your dick's smaller than mine. No, your dick's smaller than mine.
Typical 80s humor from Sylvester Stallone, no doubt.
That was definitely written
I
by...
don't really have anything thought provoking to add to this, but I
It's
mean,
such a
it is
brain
what
dead
it is.
movie.
I
Yeah.
don't think that there is anything amazing that I could say that would blow your mind.
The 80s was the best decade.
It really was.
What did you think about
No
this
one had to
movie?
think, and you could just walk into a place and take a woman.
Yeah.
That's it.
You're good.
It's the
You
best.
would have
It was the
a club.
best of times.
Is it better or worse than the 1960s astronaut stuff?
Oh, way better.
The 80s had better hair.
Yeah, I can't argue with
Aquanet,
that.
toxic masculinity.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
Go to hell, Ozone.
What about you, Vader? You got any thoughts about this movie?
The stuff that was bad was really bad, like the whole last 30 minutes of the movie. And, the stuff that was good was really good, man. It was I sat there and watched it with my wife and we completely enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I had a great time with this movie until the last 30 minutes. But My favorite part of this movie is I'm watching this movie and I'm realizing that every cool actor that ever existed in the 1980s is in this movie.
Yeah.
It really, really are.
Yeah.
And, from the police precinct captains to the bad guys. The bad guys in this movie are great.
Oh, my God.
Jack Palance playing the same character he played in Batman, right? The Asian Chinese restaurant guy from Seinfeld.
And Jack Palance has a strange obsession with ice.
Yeah.
The captain was actually in my movie.
Yes, I was going to talk about that. He's also in another Mel Gibson movie I wanted to bring up.
Gold Dukat from DS9
Yeah.
is in this movie. Marco Lamo. Great bad guy. I love him. And the bald guy, or the
Ponytail guy?
Ponytail guy.
The worst British accent
he was
ever to be
fantastic.
graced on film.
Fantastic in this movie.
That's also what was
Don't they actually call him Ponytail?
Zadar?
They do make fun of him.
I forget his name.
What's his name? Zadar, the guy with the jaw.
Oh, yeah.
yes.
They made so many jokes about that guy's face.
Yeah.
Well, that's what he was. That's
You broke that guy's jaw?
that face and jaw of his was that
Yeah.
guy's career.
Yeah.
He made a career out of being the bad guy in movies like
He
that.
was also in Samurai Cop and
Oh, my God.
a
Samurai Cop.
bunch of those like really low budget action movies.
That's a Sunday Fun Day movie.
I hadn't seen a movie with that guy in it in a long time, and it's like, holy crap! I remember this dude from
Yep.
lots of things, and he plays the exact same role in every film he's ever
Yeah.
been in. So yeah,
I'm going to put it on the table right now. We have to do a podcast about Samurai Cop.
Sunday Fun Day Samurai Cop?
No.
How awful movie. That's the worst movie ever made.
No.
It's gotta be.
I don't even know what that
It
is.
might be Hard Ticket. Hard Ticket to Hawaii might be worse. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Oh, whoa.
You think it's worse than The Room?
Yeah. Yes.
Interesting.
Go watch. Okay, it's on YouTube. You can watch the whole thing on YouTube.
Okay.
It's called Hard Ticket to Hawaii.
Okay.
It's by far the
No,
worst.
I meant you think Samurai Cop is worse than The Room.
I'm leaning that way.
You know what's better than The Room?
Tango and Cash.
Tango and Cash.
Yeah.
Tango and Cash is definitely better than all three of those movies.
Yes.
All right, my turn. What the? Matt Kadish, what the hell was this movie?
Oh, you're one to talk, Mr. Angry Red Planet.
You got no pulpits to stand on.
Like,
Claire.
I purposely picked a bad movie. He's like, I love this movie. It's fantastic. I was watching this.
It
Okay,
is
so it
fantastic.
starts out. We get to see
This movie is
Sylvester
everything
Stallone.
Kadish thinks that he is.
She's not
Sylvester
He's like,
Stallone.
yeah, I'm an egghead and a badass.
Get to see Sylvester Stallone race a tanker truck down a highway, a barren highway in the middle of nowhere. He pulls in front of it. He stops. He pulls out his .38
Yeah.
snub nose,
the tiniest gun possible.
the smallest gun he could hold, and he shoots this freaking truck from like a mile away, blows out the freaking windshield. The guy's okay. This is the greatest thing too. The truck's going like barreling down this highway like 80 miles an hour. The bullet somehow stops the truck because the guy panics and hits the brake. But then the guys, because they hit the brake, they both, the driver and the passenger,
Robert Zadar.
fly out of the truck.
Clearly,
Yeah.
the bullets shattered the glass to the point to where if they went through it, it would easily let
break
them
their
go
fall.
through.
Do you not know how cars work? Of
course not.
Do you know
Physics,
nothing?
man.
Come on, man.
And they both fall out, and then the truck just stops.
because he pushed the brake.
They pushed the brake?
And
Did
that's
they
what made them
Because
fall out.
the
Did they
truck
put it in
saw
park, too?
Stallone
Called centrifugal force.
standing there.
centrifugal force.
It's called physics, Alex.
It's called-
Deductive reasoning.
That's inertia, and it doesn't work like that.
Centrifugal force.
Anyway, so
Gravitational pull.
That's right.
right away to what, Stallone's
Just gonna
face?
say science words.
Science. Call Neil deGrasse Tyson.
The moon's gravitational pull.
Anyway, so that kind of
Don't
set
think
me
about
up.
it
I was
anymore. Do you
watching
want a
it.
sandwich?
I've never seen this movie before, and I was like, okay, this is where it's gonna go. It's already like that type of ridiculous. And then it got pretty good for a little while when it was like setting up the double cross and the whole plot line with the drug dealer trying to throw the guys in some kind of conspiracy.
How about that court scene?
The court scene. And then Cash's little speech in the courtroom where he just stood up and just obliterates the court, and the judges and the cops are all like rooting for him, like, yeah, this is a farce.
And his lawyer's like, oh, what have you done?
That was his Riggs moment.
Yes, that was definitely Riggs' moment. Okay, so the moment that this movie kind of like really solidified itself in just the absolute 80s ridiculousness is when they're in the prison. And it starts out like a normal prison. They're getting harassed by the people that they most likely put in prison to begin with. They're cops in a bad spot. They're going to get messed with and harassed and possibly killed, right? It all makes sense. I was like, okay, this is cool. And then it takes like a hard Lord of the Flies turn. They end up in some boiler room basement where everything's wet. There's like rain coming out of the ceiling for some reason.
You forgot the moment with Clint Howard and Slinky.
Oh yeah,
His fiance.
and they
and Cash's cellmate who doesn't let him use the toilet.
That's my toilet.
and Cash is about to like turn and face the guy to tell him off, and he's like this giant black man, and he's like, yeah, that's your toilet.
That's your toilet. That's absolutely. Let's get one thing straight.
Yeah.
That is absolutely your toilet. I'll go poop somewhere else. But they went down to the basement of this jailhouse, and like every single inmate in this place is there, and some kind of like organized riot thing where they're hanging.
Well, you also
up
forgot
chains.
when they were bringing them into the jail, the whole place was on fire.
Oh yeah, there was the whole place was
like
in
the
flames.
worst jail ever.
It's like, what is going
What is
on?
going
Well, it's because the
on?
entire jail was on the payroll of Jack Palance.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was like Arkham Asylum for
right.
Tango and Cash.
yeah. Except for the assistant warden, apparently. That guy was cool.
Everybody, it was fantastic.
It was a whack, and then I'm pretty sure they would have died because they got electrocuted. They were hanging from chains.
It was a big Deus Ex Machina.
It reminded me very much of that scene from that C show that we used to watch where they were dangling from chains.
They were only electrocuted for like 5 seconds.
Yeah, with like 240 volt freaking things.
That was actually taken from Lethal Weapon because that's how they were torturing Riggs. Remember?
Oh yeah, they did. It was like a go-kart battery though when they did it. And this one they were
But when they slide down the electrical wire with their bare hands, and they're like, if it passes through you, it's okay as long as you're not standing on ground. I'm like, that's not how electricity works.
But Sylvester Stallone is like, is that correct? And Kurt Russell's like, I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that moment was written. That was the table read for the thing. And some background character was like, "Is that how electricity works?" And Stallone's like, "I don't know. Let's just put it in the movie."
We gotta get him out of the prison.
That's
somehow.
a great line.
I'm thinking no.
And then they got to fall 5 stories off the zip line.
And then
but they're fine.
It came back.
big deal.
It came back to
They're
reality.
super cops.
They are definitely super cops. I think Kurt Russell gets shot twice. Very obviously does not have a bulletproof vest on, but then later on, they're like, "How'd you survive getting shot?" And he's like, "Oh, I took it to the vest."
He's related to Spencer for Hire, Spencer Confidential.
Yeah, exactly.
I could take a machete.
I could take a machete to the gut. No big deal.
Call back to our last episode. Watch it.
Yeah, go watch Spencer
Read
Confidential.
it,
What did I say?
whatever.
Oh, Mark Wahlberg is basically Batman. Yeah, that episode. Okay, so then it kind of comes back to the reality. We get a little bit more plot line. We get the very much Lethal Weapon-esque, like, drug dealer taking down the bad guys thing. And I was like, all right, I got into the movie again. And then,
The Odd Couple.
and then we got to my favorite part of the movie,
The sister?
the monster truck.
The monster.
The monster truck, right? So they go to this guy who's basically Q from James Bond, and they're like, "Hey, what do you got for us, man?" And he's like, "Take a look at this fantastic minivan with a gun on the side of it."
The Gatling gun.
Gatling
And
gun.
also, look at my dog with a gun in its mouth.
It's like it was a stuffed animal.
Yeah, that was when I got lost in this movie.
It's like, oh man,
You know that was like a John Peters thing. It's
They
like,
went-
Can we have a stuffed dog with a gun in
with a
mouth?"
gun and then have it blow up.
They're just going to drive through the streets of LA with a Gatling gun mounted on a minivan.
It was the 80s. People did that.
You could do whatever you wanted in
They
the
spent
80s.
a solid like 10 minutes just driving around this abandoned mine with hundreds of bad guys with AKs,
Motorcycles, and
motorcycles,
go-karts,
go-karts,
dirt movers.
dirt movers that go like 50 miles an hour.
There's no
Fantastic.
match.
I was like, oh my gosh, it got so ridiculous that I fell in love with it. That's when I was like, all right, I'm in. I mean, they pulled out a legitimate like Monster Jam monster truck with the giant 50 inch wheels with a missile launcher on the side. I was like, oh, okay, all right, I'm in.
I kind
Let's
of
do
feel
it.
like they knew that this was going to be like the last big action movie of the decade.
Is that what we were
So
going
they
for?
said, let's go out in style.
cut
Let's just
up, yeah.
blow up every single explosion fire pot in Hollywood.
They were like, hey
and
guys,
use them all up and
the
just
90s are coming.
blast it.
They're going to start cracking down on us. So we got to do whatever we want right now in our time.
It reminded me of like one of those backlot action stuntman set things where they have all the explosions
Yep.
and the boats and the jeeps and everything.
There was something that blew up that it was such an obnoxious Hollywood explosion effect.
Let me
can't
tell you
remember
my
what it was,
favorite
though.
part of the movie, though,
What's up?
was that Jack Palance's headquarters was rigged with a voice-activated self-destruction countdown that blew
I
up the
forgot about
entire
that.
place.
How about those
It was
mics
fantastic.
You know, just to go off of that, one of my favorite aspects of this movie is, and I turned to Jude when we were watching it and said, like, I need a supervillain lair as good as this guy's, because his bad guy hideout,
Oh my God.
was the quintessential
Yes.
bad guy hideout, complete with a hall of mirrors,
mirrors.
that he could hold a hostage in and confuse the main characters in the climax of the movie.
Yeah.
I always go to Conan the Destroyer, where they were going to the castle and there's the Hall of Mirrors. And
Yeah.
But there was a great climax at the end where they finally are facing off with Jack Palance's character, and he's in the Hall of Mirrors, and
He's holding Tango's sister, right?
and both Tango and Cash figure out where he actually is in two different ways. And after they kill him, they kind of compare notes. And it's like, how did you know?
It's like, his badge was on the wrong side of his jacket. That's how I knew it was the mirror. And then the other guy's like, I saw his ring. His ring was backwards. It's so ridiculous.
And the entire time, Tango and Cash are having this like rivalry of like, you know, like how one of them owes the other one for saving their life, and so like they keep going back and forth.
He's like, when can I date your sister?
Yeah. And that was another great aspect of it, where Cash basically has this little romance with Tango's sister, played by Terry Hatcher, and Tango's like the quintessential overprotective brother, and he doesn't want her dating a cop.
His reason was legit.
Yeah,
though.
and so like they have like a nice little like kind of like rivalry in addition to their normal business rivalry over Terry Hatcher's character, and it added a lot of really interesting dynamics to the movie.
I just remembered the ending, like right before it cut to credits. This movie ends with an epic high five.
Yes, yeah, freeze frame, high five,
like
cut to music.
Yes, perfect.
It was like I literally told you, I was like, every movie should end like
If
that.
we ever start doing video, that's how we should end every episode.
It's a slow motion.
Yeah,
We have to jump up and do it in the air.
I 100% agree.
It was a phenomenal way to end that movie.
Everyone start practicing.
A bygone art.
And it was one of those things where basically, like, after all the bull crap of the story, it gets reset. Like, they get accepted back into the police department.
Everything's like normal.
Everything's back to normal.
They didn't just escape from a federal prison.
Yeah.
They didn't kill anybody.
Yeah,
Like, sorry, we arrested you for a murder. You didn't.
yeah, they were never convicted.
Here's a key to the city.
All right. That's anybody have any final thoughts?
You're
on-
welcome, by the way.
Yeah, thank you
for recommending this movie.
Go watch it. It was great.
It was pretty good.
Well, it was okay, but it was definitely.
What would
watchable.
Jeremy John say? If you're drunk, it's a party, or what is his saying? I can't remember. Now it's a party. This is a good movie.